everyone, welcome back to Ryker Rydes. As always, I appreciate you guys tuning in. Today's video is all about changing out the battery, swapping it out for a new one. My battery went dead. I've had my bike since 2019. For those of you who don't know, I have a 2019 Can-Am Ryker 900. So what happened was, batteries don't last forever, but I kind of forced it because I left my fog lights on overnight, and I have done it a few times where I've left these on overnight. So it drains so many times, then the battery's just like, no, I'm not coming back to life, you killed me. So I killed my battery, it wouldn't recharge, so I had to go out and get another one. They're less than $100, and I just want to make sure that I wasn't going to be out somewhere and be caught with the battery dying on me. So this is the battery that came out of the bike, and I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty of how to take the battery out. I have another video on how to take the strap off, and then really it's just unscrewing a couple of bolts. If anyone needs me to put on a video of how to take out the battery, I'll gladly do that. But for those of you who are watching about changing out your battery, my guess is you probably already know how to do that, but if not, just ask. I went with the Yuasa battery. That's the battery that comes in the bike, and that's the battery that I wanted to go with. Yuasa battery is really the gold standard from what I've read. I've done my research on it. And Yuasa battery, if you look up on Google top batteries for motorcycles, Yuasa comes up on almost every single page that does its research. And also I figured, you know what, Can-Am did a lot of research on which battery they wanted to put into their bikes, and they chose this. They chose everything about this that they thought would work perfectly for what the bike has to offer. And they're the experts, not me, so why would I kind of risk their knowledge? So I'm going to show you how to prime, how to get your battery, a brand new battery, correct and ready to go. I thought you just order it and shove it in there, but it doesn't come ready to go. You have to activate it. So let me show you the steps. There's just 7 very, very easy steps. And as always, if I can do it, you can do it. So keep watching. Let's get in the car and go take a ride to my local Can-Am dealership and go pick up the battery. Let's go. I'll see you there. So I'm picking up at my local Can-Am dealership. I am picking up a Yuasa battery, and I'm hoping when I go in, one of the techs there can give me a rundown of why Can-Am chose Yuasa, why Yuasa is the battery of choice for your bike, and why they recommend it, and all the kind of details, all the initials that are on it. So let's go inside, and hopefully someone has a couple minutes where they can chat with me and give me the lowdown on batteries on the bike. And let's go inside. Check it out. All right, hi Mike, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Thank you so much for helping me out with this. I appreciate it. So here's the battery that we have. This is the one that goes with Can-Am Ryker, right? And if you want to help me take it out of the box, I'm holding the camera.
You got your lead acid pack.
All right, so I didn't realize that it's, let's turn it this way. Hold on one sec. Okay, I didn't realize that the acid doesn't come already in it. And I guess the reason is for stabilization, you can't really have it. You can't have it sitting on the shelf with the acid.
Correct.
So the acid comes separate. So if you buy the battery on Amazon, you need to know how to do this part of how to add it. If you buy your battery directly from your Can-Am dealership, they will do it for you, right?
Correct.
They will do it for you. But he's going to show us what is expected. He's not going to do it because I don't have my bike with me. My battery's dead. So he's going to show me how to do it, and then I'm going to go home and actually do it at home. So what's necessary here?
The correct way to fill an AGM battery that has an electrolyte pack like this is you open up the package here, take the plastic off, you slightly pull the caps off all the cells, and this is the strip that's going to go back on the battery when you're done. So you peel this red aluminum tape off, and then you take the battery pack, put it on top, and give it a light tap so it seats fully flush to the battery on all the cells.
Okay.
It'll start filling each one of the cells And if it's going slow, don't worry about it. You'll see a couple bubbles. You can give it a little bit of a wiggle and just let it go. It'll eventually fill.
How long does it usually take to fill?
It could take anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes.
Okay.
And then once that's done, we usually leave the caps off and let it vent. So that way it doesn't build up any unnecessary hydrogen gas. And then it allows the acid to fill into each plate. So that way each plate absorbs all of the acid. So that way you don't have dry spots inside of the cells. And if the plates are exposed, it's like a jar. So if your jar, say, is 100% battery health, if the plates are exposed to air, now you have 80%, and it's much smaller. So then you have an 80% battery, where the battery life is now 80%, not 100.
Okay, so it's very important to let it, for that reason, it's very important to let it air out.
Right.
So it'll get fully absorbed.
Correct.
And if you don't do it, the battery life will not be as good right from the start. You won't have a really strong battery.
Correct.
Okay, very, very important. Okay. And then once it's filled, and you let it sit for, you said about a half hour?
Yep, about a half
sit.
an hour. Then you take this row of caps and you just put it on top here and then push it down. Sometimes if you use like a small rolling pin, or if you have something round like a wood dowel,
Yeah.
you can roll that across it instead of killing your thumb.
Can you use like a rubber mallet?
Yep, you can use a
Okay.
rubber mallet, lightly tap on each one so they're
Okay.
all flush.
All right, and then the next step is to, from what I understand, you have to charge it now with it. Not, you can put it in your bike, but you need to like charge it.
You could,
Or
but
leave
it's
it
best.
off the bike.
Right, it's good. It's good to charge it at least for, say, a few hours, so that way it gets a very good charge before it gets installed in the battery, so it's ready
Okay.
to go.
That's awesome. And do you recommend all the new bolts and washers? Do you recommend that we use these, or just continue using the ones that came on the bike?
You can reuse these that came off of the bike, or you can use these new ones.
Okay.
Yuasa is one of the few manufacturers that actually gives you a couple different sizes of battery hardware in
Okay.
case you have any accessories or anything like that on your.
Oh, that's so cool. So it'll make a longer screw?
Correct.
Oh,
There's
that's
a longer bolt
awesome.
in here for each one.
That's so cool. Now, what's your opinion on the Yuasa battery versus other brands? Do you have any in particular that you like?
We only use the Yuasa batteries typically. We do have our own brand here, but we do use Yuasa typically on most manufacturers of batteries because of the standard. They are the best batteries for power sports.
The best battery. That's awesome. That's what you want. You want to use the, I look at it like Can-Am put a lot of energy into picking that battery, thinking that was what was best, what was needed for the bike. So why not stick with the research that they did and continue to use it? Now, a lot of people, they want to add a lot of lights to their bike. They want to add a lot of really intense music, big speakers, and then they complain that the battery is dying.
Right.
Now, what is there a reason for that, or what do you recommend?
Well, the reasoning behind that is the engineers for any motorcycle, they make the electrical system big enough to sustain a few things. Mainly it's to keep the bike rolling, the charging system, and all your normal accessories.
Mm-hmm.
But when you start going beyond that and you have now speakers that have huge wattage or a lot of lights, they consume whatever the bike's making.
Okay.
So say you're going down the beach, all the lights are on, it's hot, the cooling fan's on,
Yep.
and it's only able to make so much.
Right.
So it's not charging the battery as you're going along.
Right. Okay. So if someone does want to add a bunch of new things to their bike, would you recommend having kind of a second battery source, or what?
I haven't really seen a secondary battery system for those, but I would suggest, if that's what they're going to do, to find some way to do it.
Right.
So that way they can have one that runs the lights and whatnot, or maybe has a redundant charging system to help keep that battery charged while you're, not using the lights or something
Perfect.
like that.
Last question. I did a little bit of research on what these letters mean. The AH, is that amperage per hour?
Yeah, that's your
and then
amp hours.
the cool, what is that? CCA is
It's cold cranking amps.
cold cranking amps.
So your cold cranking amps is basically the maximum amount of amps that you're going to get at 12 volts in 0 to 30 degrees for 30 seconds. So that basically just is the standard, or the amperage for that time. So in case you're in cold or whatnot, you get the right battery that's going to be able to start your machine.
Okay.
And then as far as your amp hour battery, that's usually how long it's your amp hour is rated for. So that's how long the battery is rated for. It's got 12.6 amp hours, 20
Okay.
amps.
Now, I saw a lot of batteries I was looking online that have, it's the Yuasa, and it looks like it would also fit the Ryker, that has higher of these two numbers. Does the higher mean it's a better battery, or it gives you better, is it beneficial to go higher with these numbers? The higher the better?
Sometimes it's better to go higher depending on what you're using it for.
Okay.
Obviously, the higher your cold crank amps are, you can get more amps when you're trying to start something cold.
Okay.
That'll generate more heat, and it'll basically get the machine started a lot quicker.
So if you're living in Alaska, you should definitely have a higher number, but in
Right.
Florida, not so much.
Florida, not so much.
Not so much. Okay. And then what about for this? What would be the benefit to having the AH higher, the amperage higher?
Having a higher amp hour is, it's going to help how much the battery is going to be able to sustain, but it's not going to drastically improve your battery life if you're using a lot of accessories and whatnot.
Okay.
So basically, and the other thing too is if you go a lot bigger in battery, sometimes it doesn't fit where you want it to fit.
Right.
You may have, something that's like this, but if it's 2 inches taller, now it doesn't fit underneath the hood piece or anything like that.
Right.
So,
Okay. So stick with what they recommend.
pretty much, yeah.
Okay. Well, very informative. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you for your time. Oh, the camera's moving. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate you. Extremely
Anytime.
knowledgeable, and now I feel like I've given people the right information and not hearsay of other stuff. So it's been awesome. Thank you. I appreciate it.
welcome.
Have a great afternoon.
You too.
Thanks.
Have fun
Bye.
riding.
Bye. Okay, I'm back with the brand new battery. That was a very educational experience, and I learned a lot. So let's see if I can put it to good use now. So here is the electrolyte pack, which is a sulfuric acid in here. So you want to be very careful with this. You want to make sure it doesn't get on your skin. And then here is the battery, the new battery. So if you notice, so it comes with this metal, they're heavy, this red sealed tape on top of it. And it comes with all the nuts and bolts that you're going to need to get started. And as the gentleman over at Can-Am said, what's really cool is they give you different size bolts. So if you have a lot of things to attach to it, you have bigger bolts. That's kind of neat. All right, so let's get started in activating the battery. Like I said, it's just 7 easy steps. I'm going to go through them one at a time with you, and so we can learn it and do it together. So let's get rid of the old battery so there's no confusion. Okay, step 1 for the process is first you want to remove this. You want to remove the foil. And if you can see, there's all these different 6 little ports on there. The ports are covered. They need to get punctured. And I'm going to show you what to do with that. Do not puncture them yourself. There's a way to do it correctly. Do not puncture anything yourself. So you want to make sure it's on a level surface and out of your bike. So you want to make sure you're not putting it in your bike just yet. Number 2 is, I should have done this beforehand. You're going to open up your pack. Here you go. Helps to have a little bit of nails. All right, so what I'm going to do is, because I don't want anything to accidentally burn my hands with the sulfuric acid or the electrolyte pack, I'm going to put on my motorcycle gloves before I take that lid off. Okay, so this is all step 2. You take off your cover. Now save this cover, do not get rid of it. This is going to go on your top, so that's what's going to seal it later. So you just place that gently down, And then now, step 3 is you're gonna flip this over, so it's not gonna pour out, nothing's gonna happen. So if you're careful, you should be fine, but I'm just using gloves as a precaution. So what you're gonna do now for step 3 is you wanna break these seals against these ports that are in here. So if you see what I'm doing is I'm just topping that right on here. So you just put it on there. I'll do it this way so it's facing you. It doesn't matter which way. And then now you want to very lightly, you can feel it go in there. You want to make sure they're all pushed in correctly. And you know it's working when you start seeing all the bubbles going up. So I'm going to leave my gloves on for the remainder of the project, because when I take this off now, the surrounding area here will have a little bit of acid possibly dripping off of that. So I'm going to keep this on here. So this is step 3. Now step 4 is you're going to, you want to keep this in place and let it drain. It takes about 20 to 30 minutes. You want everything to fully drain. If you think, the bubbles stop going and it might be a little clogged or a little bit hard to push through, just give it a good tap or tap the battery a little bit to make sure it's getting in there. So you want to let it sit now. So I'm going to come back in about 20-30 minutes after this is already drained through, and then we'll go on to step 5. So far so good. We're going to let the battery sit for another let it sit probably for another 30 to another hour after it's filled up. It's very important to do that because the cells in there need to get fully saturated with the electrolyte pack, with the acid pack. So you want it to really, before you charge it up, really make sure that all those cells are totally covered. Then, so it'll permeate the plates that are in there. That's the words we're looking for. And then it gives you the optimal performance in your battery if you let it sit like that. Hopefully that makes sense. And then after you've done this part, I'm going to show you what you need to do next, which is how to properly charge it before putting it back in your bike. So it's a very simple process. If you order it, the reason why they don't come activated, because if they came activated, which is possible to buy one that's pre-activated for you, but when it's activated, the shelf life of the battery is not that long when it's sitting there. If it's activated, it's maybe a couple months. If it's not activated, it can sit like this in the Amazon room or in the dealership for a couple of years. So I like doing it myself because then I know exactly it's a fresh battery, it's ready to go. So if I was buying it, I would prefer to get it this way. If you go to your Can-Am dealership and you ask them, they could probably activate it for you. I don't think that should be a problem. They could definitely do this part for you if you're afraid and you don't want to do it, but it's, as you can see, it's totally simple. I'm already down to here since we've been talking. So I'm going to let this sit for a few minutes, for 30 minutes to be exact, and I'm going to come back and finish it up with you. Easy. Okay, it did not take too long. I think it's just about maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes at most to fill completely up. You can tell this is totally empty, but I know there's going to be a little bit of acid maybe dripping from the bottom. So I'm going to take it and just put it directly in a bag and make sure it doesn't spill anywhere. Comes off very easily. There's nothing actually dripped out, but it's just to be safe. Also, make sure when you take your old battery that you recycle it. You cannot put it in the trash can, very bad. So make sure you bring your battery to recycling facility. Now, what Mike from the dealership said is to let it now air it out a little bit. Let some air flow into here. So I'm gonna let it sit for another 15 minutes with nothing on top of it. And then I'm gonna come back and put this on it and then charge it up before putting it back on my bike. I'll be right back. At this point, it's been sitting, it's been airing out. The cell should be totally full of everything that it needs, of the acid, of everything, so it should be completely ready to go. So the next step is to put on the cover and then charge it. So, and the reason why you're charging it is because it's activated only to around 75% or so. So in order to get the battery working at its full capacity, you want to charge it now. and then charge it till it's fully charged, and then the battery's ready to go. So I'm just gonna show you real quick what I'm doing now. Okay, I'm putting this cover back on. Remember the one we said don't remove? There's no right or wrong, there's no directional way to put this on. So you just put it on however, it doesn't really matter. Just make sure it's on there. It needs to be completely flush, so make sure everything's lined up. See how it's not flush? You're gonna make sure it's pushed in really hard. And to make sure, I have a little rubber mallet to make sure it's in there nice. So it's, when I say flush, I mean it is literally seated inside there. So you should not see any openings whatsoever. It should be airtight in there. Completely, you should be able to run your hand over it and not feel any bumps or anything. Next, I'm going to put it on my charger, and I'll show you what I bought for a charger, or the charger that I have. I have a video on this already of how to charge, but I bought a battery tender. I just like that brand, it has good reviews, and it's blinking. It's on 12 volts and AGM, because it is a glass battery, so it is everything is on and set correctly, 12 volts and AGM flooded. So, and on the battery there is a spot here, has a positive and a negative. Red always is positive, but if you need to check, there's a little positive sign there, so it's positive to positive and then negative to negative if you've never done this before. So you do the positive first, do not touch it, and then you have your negative on. And now I am going to let this charge up and let it, it's probably going to take a little while to get it fully charged. So I'm going to let it sit. Okay, now's the big test. I dropped the battery in, and you put it in the same way you took it out. So you just remember how you've taken the battery out, and you put it back, everything works the same, in the opposite order. So now's a big test to make sure I did it right and everything's good. I'm gonna start the bike, make sure all my extra lights are all working, and I'm gonna be sure not to leave them on overnight. Let's try it out. Wish me luck.